Welcome back. So we hope you all had a very nice break and enjoyed the sessions that were on this morning. Our next session is around building resilience, working from home. And with that, we have Dil from Insight Matters, who are a counselling, psychotherapy and wellness centre based in Dublin. Over to you, Dil.
Jamie, thank you very much. And thank you very much, Dublin Pride, for asking me to speak here today. I'm very conscious. I'm looking at my hair. It's very poofy. I keep thinking my undercut has grown out. So I think I'm slowly losing my lesbian superpowers. Anyway, I need to get my hands on a razor. So listen, thank you so much for asking me to be here today. So I'm going to talk to you about building resilience while working from home. And which, let's face it, is very topical because most of us in the last year have started working from home, and it wasn't a choice. Let's name that first. It wasn't a choice. Maybe some of us like the idea of working from home. Maybe some of us have really took to it like a duck to water. But maybe some of us are not really enjoying it and are struggling and are really looking forward to the day when you can get back into the office. So whichever category you fall into, I hope what you hear today will help you just, I suppose, sit into this experience that we are all collectively having and hopefully maybe try and even enjoy it a bit. Now, I'm very conscious that Vanessa, a wonderful sign language person, is signing away. So I always like to play a trick on sign language interpreters. My full name, Jamie's introduced me as Dil, but my full name is Mihindi Kulasuriya Nancy Laird and Dil Wickremasinghe. Sorry, Vanessa, I couldn't help myself. It's a very long name, and sure, most Irish people run a mile. But if you're Sri Lankan, you know that's a very common, long-winded name. And I always say that's on my address, that's on my life story, that's my name. So just forgive me, Vanessa, for that. I just thought it'd be a bit of fun, a bit of humor. I think is really important, especially when we talk about mental health. So to get straight into it, I suppose I'll say a little bit about myself first. So actually, before we do that, we might do a little meditation body scan, so to speak, to help you arrive in the moment. If you've ever done one of these things before, you might feel comfortable to do this with me now. If you're not, just maybe listen and just try even just sit still and maybe see if this can maybe help you arrive in the moment. So I have my meditation bells with me, and I might ring them as well because they're really good to help us bring us into the here and now. So when you're ready, I invite you to make sure that you're sitting comfortably in a chair and make sure both your feet are on the ground flat, and if you are able to, close your eyes and bring your attention to your breath. So bring your attention inwards and just be aware of if there's any noises around you or any traffic outside, or just bring your awareness inward and to your breath. And just observe your breath for a moment there. How are you breathing right now? Is it deep or is it shallow? Are you deep breathing fast or are you breathing slow? Without changing it, just become aware of your pattern of breathing right now. And maybe if you can, take 3 breaths with me. Take a breath through your nose and breathe out through your nose. Take another breath through your nose and breathe out through your nose. And finally, another breath. always try and remember your breath is with you at all times. And just be thankful that you don't have to remember to breathe. You breathe naturally. Your body breathes for you. And there's a huge support in that. So always bring your attention and focus to your breath whenever you're feeling any way agitated. So you bring your awareness to the chair that you're sitting in. Just sense how your feet are on the ground, the points of contact between your body and the chair. And just for a moment, just focus on what it feels like to feel supported by the chair that you're in. How does that feel for you? How does the feeling of being supported feel like for you? Now, if your thoughts have wandered off, without any judgment, try and bring the focus back to your breath. And I'm going to ring my meditation bells 3 times. And if you can, as best as you can, stay with the sound of the bell. Here we go. Okay. So when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes and just reconnect with your environment. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, and you're very welcome back. So these are very easy, 5-minute mindful, mindful practices or meditations that you can do on a day-to-day basis. There's plenty of videos on YouTube. There's plenty of apps out there. Insight Timer is actually a very good meditation app. Lots of guided free meditations that you can do, and try and figure out a time of the day that you can do this. For me personally, mornings are the best time before everybody wakes up in the house. I get to have maybe 10-15 minutes, and that's when I do my meditation, and it really sets me up for the day. Irrespective of what happens, what breaks in the news, whatever is happening in relation to COVID, at least I took the time to connect with myself, and that really resources me in relation to facing whatever the day might bring. So that's the meditation. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, just in case you haven't heard of the work that I've done or the work of Insight Matters. The first question people ask me is, where am I from? I was born and brought up in Italy, and my parents are Sri Lankan. So I lived in Italy, I lived in Sri Lanka, then I worked as a flight attendant for 5 years in Bahrain. And then at the age of 25, in the year of 2000, it was June 2000, I arrived in Dublin. And I was, like many LGBTQ people from around the world, forced to emigrate in search of a country where I could be myself and live an authentic and open life. My first job in Sri Lanka was working in Sri Lankan radio, and unfortunately I was fired when I wanted to be open about my sexuality. This is back in 1994, and it's unfortunately homosexuality is yet to be decriminalized in Sri Lanka, and our LGBTQ community in Sri Lanka is still very much battling against I suppose the majority in relation to gain equal rights. So I always think about them, and I'm always very conscious of the privilege that we have here in Ireland. So we must not forget about countries like Sri Lanka that are still very much in the thick of it. So when I moved to Ireland in June 2000, quite serendipitously, within 24 hours of my feet touching Irish soil, I found myself dancing down O'Connell Street in broad daylight singing "It's Raining Men," because it happened to be Dublin Gay Pride. So from that very first day of arriving in Dublin, I realized I had come home. This is where I was always meant to be. And from that very first day, I set about creating a life for myself. And I got into, I did lots of jobs. I worked in hospitality, then I got into recruitment. But interestingly, I experienced a lot of trauma because obviously having to emigrate because of my sexuality. My parents were deeply religious, so they actually threw me out of the family home when I was 16, when I came out to them. So all that trauma caught up with me. And I thought, like many people, if I got away, and put as much distance between me and my trauma, I'd be fine. But trauma doesn't work like that, because wherever you go, trauma comes with you. And sure enough, it was in 2006. I was very settled. I had a good job. I bought a house. I was in a committed relationship, and that's when my mental health issues really kicked in, because the trauma started bubbling up, and that took me to a service called 1 in 4, where I accessed the services of psychotherapy, and that has been really the beginning of a wonderful, fulfilling journey for me, because it helped me reclaim my dream of working in media. I worked for News Talk for a decade, presenting a show called Global Village on the topic of social justice and mental health. And then 3 years ago, incidentally, I got fired from there for being very open about unfortunately, the misogynistic attitudes that are very much part of Irish culture. And it was very much part of the #MeToo global movement. Because for 10 years, I saw a lot of things happening, a lot of things being said, a lot of victim blaming, a lot of, as I said, misogyny and gender inequality that I could not stay without saying what was, very much on my mind and in my heart. And that was pretty much the end of my career in Irish media. But interestingly, it's one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I returned to college and I'm studying psychotherapy. And this is where our practice, Insight Matters, comes in. Because 10 years ago, I met my wife, Anne-Marie, at a mental health retreat, and she was qualifying to be a psychotherapist. And we both experienced the lack of LGBTQI plus affirming mental health support services. And we decided to create a practice called Insight Matters, and that was 10 years ago. And genuinely, I thought it was just going to be Anne-Marie and myself. Anne-Marie was going to be the psychotherapist. I was going to be the one who was going to, create awareness and maybe bring a few clients. And now, nearly 10 years later, we have 85 psychotherapists, psychologists, counselors, and holistic practitioners supporting the mental health of over 500 clients. And we are located at 106 Capel Street, right next to our house. And we initially only had one floor, but now we occupy the whole building. So that's 15 rooms, four floors and 15 rooms. And we actually have a housekeeping department. So I kind of jokingly call ourselves a therapy hotel. So I suppose my passion for mental health started when I accessed mental health services back in 2006. Then, of course, when I met Anne-Marie, I realized there was a real need in the mental health services to be more inclusive. And then after I left Newstalk, I decided, it was time for me to actually train and become a psychotherapist myself. And I actually started my client work last October. So I feel very fulfilled. And I keep thinking all of this happened because I went into therapy back in 2006 to talk about all the trauma and all the discrimination and homophobia that I experienced in my life. And it was really an incredible gift that has kept on giving up until now. And speaking of gifts, this is a picture of my family. Anne-Marie and I are the proud moms of Phoenix, who's 5 years old, and Xavier, who's 3. A big wave to them, because I think they're watching from downstairs in the kitchen while they're baking bread. The joys of homeschooling. And again, my parents were very conservative, and they were actually Jehovah's Witnesses. I was a Jehovah's Witness up until the age of 16. And one of the last things that I managed to, I suppose, get rid of whilst I was in therapy was this idea that gay people shouldn't have children. Now, this was something that was said to me by my parents when I was growing up, and this actually had stayed with me for most of my life. Thankfully, because of therapy, I was able to become aware of this horrendous thought feeling that I had, and then paved the way to Amri and myself starting our own family. And again, if I hadn't done that piece of work of taking that inward journey, I don't know if I'd be a mom today. And for me personally, that would have been a huge loss. I'm not saying that everybody has to go off and have kids, but for us, for me and Anne-Marie, having children was very much part of something that we wanted as part of our life. So yeah, so that's my family photo, and we're standing outside of in front of our center, and it's a picture that I'm very proud of. It was actually part of Pride 2020. So moving on to next slide. Now, when this whole thing started last year, back in March, which feels, I don't know about you, but it feels like it was a decade ago, because so much has happened since last year. The first thought that went through my mind was, this is not a race, this is a marathon. Because I found a lot of people very much putting off their self-care, very much thinking, you know what, I'm going to try and get through this, I'm going to power through, and I'll sort myself out after this is all over. But I always had this suspicion that this was something that was not going to just blow away overnight, and it was going to take its time. And now it's almost a year that we're, currently the world is living with the effects of COVID-19. So if you don't prioritize, like if you hadn't prioritized your mental health, your physical health, your sense of well-being, you'll be in a situation where you pretty much put it off for a year. So it's not too late to do something about that. So please do approach what's happening to us now collectively as a human family as something that is a marathon. So then we can put the right things in place right now to help us not just get through this in a healthy way. Maybe we might be able to catch pockets of fun and enjoyment as well, through these dark days. And then when we get out of it, when we come out of the other side, we're actually in a good state, as opposed to being on our knees. Because I think that's my constant worry, that people have put off their sense of well-being or their own mental health, thinking that they'll sort this out once they get through this. But once they get through this, they might be actually in a worse state than they were at the start of all this. So it's never too late to start prioritizing your mental health, your physical health, and indeed your just sense of well-being. And I'm very conscious when I say mental health and physical health. There's for decades, there's been this idea that mind and body are separate. They're not. It's all connected. So anyone who has experienced mental health issues will know that they'll experience physical issues as part of it. If you're depressed, you're going to feel tired. You're going to have aching muscles. So that's because your mind and body are connected. And in the same way, if you don't look after your physical health well, if you don't eat healthy and sleep adequately on a daily basis, all of that is going to impact on your mental health. I know when I became a new mom back 5 years ago, and there was lack of sleep, I never realized just how little new parents sleep. And of course, you're going to experience mental health issues because your body is depleted. Your resources are depleted. So therefore, you're going to start feeling bad. So mental health and physical health are very much connected. So today's talk is really very much about you as a whole, looking at it from a holistic point of view, and not just looking at your mental health, but you in total. So moving on to our next slide, work from home. So that's what we're doing, all of us, even essential workers like myself and Anne-Marie are essential workers, and we are very much in the center, and we are delivering face-to-face services as well as online, but we are doing more work at home currently because of this homeschooling element and sharing the care of our kids. But a friend of mine actually asked me a few months back, are we working from home or are we living at work? Now that's a really good question. And I remember when I first heard that question, I kind of stopped in my tracks, because I realized that the dangers of us, the balance tipping to the wrong side of the scale is very easy to do, because there aren't any definite boundaries. Those days when we were going into work, you wake up, the alarm would go off, you wake up in the morning, get showered, get changed, have breakfast, leave the house. You would commute to your work. So at least there was a physical boundary between you and your workplace. And then, of course, if emails, people, including myself, I'm talking about myself as well. Sometimes I could have been checking work emails at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the evening, but at least I left work and I had taken a break from, either in the car or on the bus, and I would have got a sense of space between work and myself. But that's all gone, because now we're very much working from home, and some of us, I'm very conscious of a lot of people who are living, sharing the accommodation, and their bedrooms have now become their office. So you have your bed on one side of the room, and then you have a desk on the other side of the room, and that is your workstation. And it's very difficult to be able to switch off if your work desk is there looking at you, and your laptop and say, look, there's loads of emails here, maybe you should check out what's the client got back to you, or if there's any updates on that project, so it's very easy to get sucked in. So more so than ever before, you have to really consciously create healthy boundaries between you and your workplace, because if you don't, you won't be working from home, you'll be living at work, and this is going to cause huge issues from a, again, physical and a mental health point of view. And once this is all over, we are going to have to take a really good look at the fallout of the series of lockdowns that have happened, and how this has affected us in relation to our own sense of well-being and our connection to ourselves and our connection to other people. Because I find, especially this lockdown, even more worse than the other, because I could be walking down the street. I make it a point when I walk in my neighborhood with my kids, I'll say hello to people as I'm walking past them, even if I don't know them. But I found that in this lockdown, people are not even doing that. They're even afraid to actually say hello to each other when you're passing someone in the street. And that for me is really worrying, because there's like there's a sense of fear of even saying hello to another person in the event that the other person might want to engage in a conversation. And yet, if you're socially distancing and you're outdoors, there's nothing wrong in having a conversation. So it's really important to kind of be mindful of yourself through this time. So then, so a few points in relation to that. What can you do right now? Really practical things that you can do to help you with those boundaries. Back in 2006, when I started accessing therapy, I realized I wanted to kind of set up my own company, and that made me become self-employed back in 2006. And I remember doing a course, which was a course that kind of helped people who were starting up their businesses. And most people who become self-employed usually tend to start working from home in their front room. And the advice that we got, make sure that if you're going to take that route and you're working from home, make sure you get dressed for work. So this, like the same advice that I got back in 2006, I feel is still serving me now. So if you're working from home, things that you can do to help to create those physical boundaries between you and your work is, when you wake up in the morning, get dressed into your work clothes. Resist the temptation of working in your pajamas, okay? Because try and leave that for after work or for the weekend. And then leave the house for a walk. Even if you walk around your neighborhood, get some fresh air. And when you come back into the house after the walk, go straight to your workstation. So it's like you did your little commute to work, So structure your day. If you're in a situation where you have your desk in your bedroom, and that's where your working space is, maybe see if you can either dismantle it or maybe put a screen in front of it. So when you're off from work, you can actually, you don't have to look at it, So at least if there's a screen or some kind of a throw or something to just help you kind of realize or come into a place where I'm at home now and I'm no longer in the workplace. This is obviously if you're living in a house and you have a separate room for your workplace, then just keep the door closed. So that's another way of making sure you have physical boundaries. What else? Obviously things like taking regular breaks. I mean, screen time is a huge issue, because if you're not on your laptop, you're on your phone or on a tablet, so you need to be mindful about how much screen time you have. And it's so funny because I'm the same with, as a parent, we're always conscious about the screen time that kids have, and as adults we need to be aware of that as well, because the more time you spend in front of the screen, it does have an impact on us. It drains us, and with like Zoom is these, whether it's Zoom or Skype or whatever platform you're using, they can also be draining. There's Zoom fatigue at the moment, and sometimes looking at the screen can, you don't have to look at the screen at all times. I was thinking the other day, you could actually get one of those external cameras, so you could just look at the camera as opposed to looking at the screen, because most of us would use the camera that's in our laptop. So obviously we end up looking at the screen. So if you're in a meeting, if you actually had an external camera, you could be just looking at that, and then that's also really good because it looks like you're making eye contact with the person that you're speaking with. Because normally when you're looking at the camera that's on your screen, you tend to look at yourself, which is even more weird because it's like it feels like you're talking to yourself. So that can really help save your eyes from additional screen time. So that's really, I'm very happy to share these slides with you if you need them at a later stage. Then sitting is another thing. Invest in a good chair. And the thing is, because I'm obviously working and running the center, and then I'm also in college at the moment. I'm in my third year training as a psychotherapist, and lectures can be like 4 hours long, and I realize, I'm sitting so much, and that is so bad for our health. It's so bad for your posture. It's just not healthy. So using an exercise ball as a chair is actually really, really good, and there's lots of benefits because it promotes balance, it improves your core strength, it enhances your posture, and it's very active because when you're sitting in a chair, you kind of sit back and your stomach muscles are relaxed, and you might even slouch. But if you're sitting on an exercise ball, it's going to be an active position, and obviously take as many breaks as you can. Then moving on to, and I suppose there is something that you could be doing during this time around your own mental health and your own sense of well-being, because a lot of people have used, in fairness now, if you're on social media, you'll see people who have done home improvements, and they've lost weight and set up a cookery channel. There's been a lot of productivity over the last few months that I've noticed, and that's a lot of pressure. Okay, so I just say the very fact that you woke up this morning, the very fact that you're actually even here listening to me talking about building resilience in while working from home is a massive achievement. So well done, you. Okay, so don't feel that you have to kind of constantly be productive and kind of do what other people are doing, because people are coping. Everyone has a different way of coping. So if today you just got out of bed and you're here, fantastic. But it is a good time for self-reflection. That's one thing for sure, because we have more time in our hands to maybe make some time to think about yourself, reflect on your life in general, and whether are you self-aware, and are you happy in your life? Are you happy in the kind of direction that your life is going? It's a good time to take stock. And I'm also mindful that this is the start of the year, and normally January is usually the time of the year that people kind of make a lot of New Year's resolutions around personal development. So this exercise that I'm going to talk about might be something that might help you in relation to just maybe figure out whether you are in a place where you're really happy, and if there's anything you can do to kind of improve that and develop yourself. So the Wheel of Life is a great coaching exercise, and it gives you an opportunity to take a a 360 turn. Hi, Vanessa. Hey, the two guys took a break. It gives you an opportunity to take a 360 view of your life. Okay, so here's an example. There's loads of these online, and there's loads of examples. So basically, you're looking at a pie. Think of Trivial Pursuit, and each pie represents a different section of your life. So you've got finances, you've got family and friends, you've got career, you've got emotional health, you've got various aspects of your life, right? And the I suppose the exercise is each section of your life you can number 1 to 10, and then you mark yourself how content or how happy you are in that part of your life. So if you're kind of between 1 and 10 when it comes to romance, if you score yourself an 8 or 9, great, or is it a 3 or 4, so, and then you do the next section. So it's finance, are you happy between 1 and 10? Is it 8 or is it 3 or whatever? And then once you mark yourself for each of the sections, you then join the dots. And I suppose the aim of this exercise is to have a kind of a circle within a circle, which is, in fairness, I think it's not quite possible to be content in every aspect of your life. But I suppose the reason for this is like, if you are like, if for what they say is that if it's a wheel within a wheel, then it would be a smooth ride, so to speak. Like if this was the wheels of your car, would you have a smooth drive or would it be bumpy? Right? So that's the aim of the exercise. And then when you see on paper just the areas in life that you feel you've done well in, and areas in your life that you maybe need a little bit of improvement on, that can be a huge motivation for you to brainstorm some ideas in relation to how to improve that particular section that you are not very happy with. So whether it's exercise, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's like, obviously no one's going to be happy around recreation or social life. Like, everybody's going to be pretty, that section is going to be pretty abysmal, no doubt. But even then, are you connected to your friends? Are you making regular time to talk to people and your family, to stay connected? So this is a really good exercise to help you kind of kickstart that process of self-reflection. So moving on to stress. Okay, so we have to talk about stress, very much part of our life before all this started, and still very much part of our life. If not, stress levels have probably gone through the roof because of what's happening and your particular situation or in relation to your health and who you live with, and so to speak. So what is stress? Okay, because this is really, really important, and it's very much part of becoming more self-aware and building your own resilience. Stress is the body's reaction to any change that requires an adjustment or response. So the body reacts to these changes with physical, mental, and emotional responses, and stress is a normal part of life. Okay, so it's important to know that you will experience stress either when good things happen to you and when bad things happen to you. So, like, for example, getting married, it's not usually that's a happy occasion, but that's also going to be stressful because that will involve change. The birth of a child, also something that's is very positive, but also is going to bring about stress. A promotion that maybe you've been wanting forever, now you finally get it, and you're going to feel stressed because there is a period of change. So stress is a very normal part of life, and it's all about how we then actually respond to it. But here are some sources of stress, right? So the environment, the news, you heard this, if you try and manage your mental health, try and limit your amount of consumption of news, because it can really bring up the stress levels. So if you are feeling particularly vulnerable on a particular day, maybe not listening to the news might not be a bad thing, Then there's social stresses like job, deadlines, finances, conflicts. And then there's also your thoughts, your interpretations, labels, predictions, like if you start thinking, oh my God, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. I'm never going to get through this. I am just so bad, I'm a failure. There's lots of things that we say to ourselves that can actually increase stress. So what I'm trying to get at if you're in the middle, there is so many sources of stress around you. It's not just from an external point of view, but also from an internal point of view. You can be, it's quite normal to feel bombarded by stress because it is around us. So moving on to the signs of stress. Being irritable, being aggressive, impatient, wound up, uptight, overburdened, anxious, depressed, uninterested in life, having a sense of dread, being worried about your health, feeling neglected or lonely. These are all signs of stress. So I know I have experienced pretty much all of those at some stage in the last year in particular. So it's and the reason I'm saying this to you, so you can if you become aware of the signs, then you can do something about it. Because the problem is when people are not aware that they're stressed, and they can go on for months on end being stressed, not recognizing the signs of it, and then unfortunately burning out and then actually becoming physically ill. So if you can see the signs, you can actually respond and do something about it. So we can't control what happens, but we can control our response. And I think we all thought that we were in control of our life, and control is very much an illusion. And COVID-19 has pretty much showed us that very clearly, that we have absolutely no control. Something that started in China is now impacting us so severely here in Ireland and everywhere else. So we can't control what happens in our environment, but we can control our response. And the reason I'm saying that to you, there is a sense of empowerment there. There is something I can do in relation to how I respond to what is happening around me at the moment. So I'm going to talk to you about the autonomic nervous system, which is part of your nervous system. And this, folks, is a game changer. I was sitting in my first year training as a psychotherapist. It was a stress response class. And when we went through this lecture, it was a real mind-blowing moment for me, because so many things made sense. So our bodies are really quite wonderful, and we have a section in a first of all, we have the amygdala, which is in our brain, which is constantly scanning our environment to see whether we are safe or not, right? And it's really important to understand that it's a perceived threat. There was a time when, in prehistoric times, if there was a massive saber-toothed tiger coming at us, your amygdala would say, you're not safe, right? And your autonomic nervous system would kick into action. So you have the parasympathetic system, and then you have the sympathetic system. So the sympathetic system is the part of your autonomic nervous system, which is your fight or flight response. So it's the part of you that makes you spring into action, okay, and save yourself. So it cuts off blood supply to your digestive system, because you have no time now to digest your breakfast roll, because now you need blood to pump into your major muscles so you can run and save yourself. It makes you breathe faster. It makes it just gets you kind of, the adrenaline starts pumping. And you hear people when their the sympathetic system is in action, you heard of people in emergency moving a car, so they could save their loved one, because you do become kind of superhuman. And then you have the parasympathetic system, which is the relaxation response. So if the sympathetic system is your stress response, which gets activated when you are in danger, your parasympathetic system is your relaxation response, which is activated when you feel safe. So your amygdala is constantly sending, messages and telling the system which one should be kind of taking the lead. And the two work together to have a sense of, it's called homeostasis, to keep balance in your life. Now, the interesting thing is, so that was the saber-tooth tiger situation. So in this day that we're living in, if you're walking down the street and you see a car coming at you, that's exactly what would happen. The sympathetic nervous system would kick into action, and you'll be able to save yourself by jumping away from the car hitting you, right? But it's also important to realize that if you perceive a threat, your body doesn't know the difference, whether it's an actual car coming at you or whether it's an email that has just come in from an irate customer. Your body still will perceive that as a threat. And that is massive, folks, because imagine when you become a bit more self-aware and you become more connected with your sympathetic and parasympathetic system, you will become aware how your sympathetic system, your stress response, gets activated over and over and over and over again in just a day, depending on what's happening. Oh my God, I lost my phone. Oh my God, that email has just come in from that person. Oh my God, the infection rates are through the roof. So you could constantly live in a situation where your stress response is constantly activated. And that over a long period of time can bring about chronic illness. And for me, this was such a revelatory moment because I realized my own parents, by the time they were my age, my father always had heart issues because of stress, and my mother had hypertension. So the amount of people that are on medication because of simply this, we weren't aware of how our bodies responded and how relaxation is, making a conscious effort to bring your relaxation response in. And calm yourself down, because if you don't do that, you're going to get yourself sick. And very simple way of doing that is by taking a breath. So that email has just come in and you just perceived a threat that, oh my gosh, I'm going to get given out to by this client, or my manager is going to be upset with me, or whatever. You can take a moment and take a breath and go, actually, you know what? Even if that guy is in a bad mood, or I get an email about the deadline, it's going to be okay. I'm gonna get through it. I'm just gonna, the bite-sized chunks. I'm gonna get through this one day at a time. So if you can take that moment to calm yourself and bring the relaxation response back into play, then you can actually do something about it. Because normally what happens, most people are making decisions in a state of stress, and as a result, you don't get anything done, because the rational part of your brain gets cut off, and that's when you make bad decisions. So before you act, when your stress response is activated, make sure you take some deep breaths and bring your relaxation response into action before you actually decide on what to do next. So your breath is with you at all times, and it can help you regulate your autonomic nervous system. So what are your stress triggers? So becoming self-aware, you would do an exercise where you start jotting down what are the things that stress you out. And then if you become aware of them, you can do something about them. If you feel that they're going to be, whether it's deadlines, whether it's the end of the month report, whatever it is, you can put things into place that'll help you kind of navigate those stress triggers or that stressful period in a more healthy and compassionate and kind way for yourself, and where you're looking after yourself. Now, if you want to be the driver's seat of your own life, because if you're not, life will drive you. Now, this is another one of those quotes that kind of made a lot of sense to me during my course. And this is when we talk about the unconscious. And like a lot of people would think that we are in charge. All the decisions we make up here are the we are the captains we are the captain of the ship. In other words, I'm the one in charge here. But the question is, are you the captain of the ship, or are the skeletons underneath that are actually steering the ship? So Freud is a person that I've read a lot about in the last 3 years, and he popularized the concept of the unconscious. And the reality is, he believed, and many people in the area of psychotherapy and psychology would believe, that only a small part of us is like the iceberg is what we are aware of. But the most part of ourself is actually underneath the water, and we are not aware of what's happening down there. And becoming self-aware means going inward and getting to know yourself and getting to understand, what the things, who you are today, because of the many things that you have experienced over your life, or how you were raised, or the messages. As LGBTQ people, we have experienced so much oppression, so much discrimination, our sense of worth, our sense of our self-loathing. There's a lot of negative messages that we absorbed growing up. So all of those messages have impacted on who we are and our identity, and it's really important. Like I did when I went into psychotherapy, I thought gay people should have children. So thankfully I did that piece of work, and I was able to uncover this horrendous thing and pave the way to creating my own family. And if I hadn't done that, I'd really hate to think what would have happened. So therapy is a good place to kind of do this work. And I have a few more slides before I go to questions and comments from you. I'm really hoping that you will engage and maybe let me know your thoughts on all this. Negative self-talk or just negative thinking. Don't be a victim of negative self-talk. Remember, you're always listening. So what you say about yourself, usually these are things that were told to you when you're growing up. Perhaps you were told that you were this, that, and the other, and you find yourself still repeating those negative, toxic messages. Please be mindful that you are always listening, so you can try and be kinder to yourself. Talk to yourself like you would talk to your best friend. Setting healthy boundaries. We talked about from a work perspective how to set boundaries, but you need to set boundaries when it comes to your relationships as well. So the best way I can explain what boundaries are is, like, imagine you're a house. So if you're a house, you have a bit of garden at the front and a fence at the end. And that fence is where you end and where the world begins. So if you have healthy boundaries, you would have a good sense of where that fence is. And if someone was to skip over that fence and do a little tap dance on your front lawn, you would know straight away, and you would tell them, hey, you're in my front lawn. You didn't ask me permission to come in. Can you please go back, to the other side of the fence? So, so this is the simplest way I can explain good, healthy, emotional boundaries. Because if you have a good sense of this, if your work colleague is asking you to do things that maybe is not in your job description, or if your boss is asking you to work that extra time, you will know that your boundaries are being encroached on, and then you can do something about it and use this wonderful magic word, which is no. Very difficult word sometimes to say. I often find myself practicing in front of the mirror. No, because it's not easy to, because when you say no, you think it's not going to go down well. The person might like me less. It might get me into trouble. But no is a really important word that will help you safeguard your own mental health and your own sense of well-being, and really, I suppose, assert your boundaries to the people around you. And remember, two things about no. If someone asks you something, don't feel you have to respond straight away. Say, look, can I have a couple of minutes? I need to check my schedule, or I need to check something before I get back to you. So say that, go away, and then come back and say, look, actually I can't do that thing, but I could do this for you. So if saying a hard no is difficult, maybe you can always offer them an alternative. But remember, you can always say, can I have a couple of minutes because I need to check something? That's a great way of giving yourself some space before having to say no. You wouldn't let this happen to your phone. Don't let it happen to you either. Self-care is a priority and not a luxury. So it's interesting when I find myself when the battery charge of my phone is dying. I'm like the very first person. Where's my charger? Quick, everything has to stop because I have to charge my phone. And yet I find myself going on for weeks and months with a low battery, as in my own physical low battery, and not doing anything about it. So really, really, really important. I've got much better at this, believe me. But I find it so interesting that many of us will treat our phones better than we treat ourselves. So be aware of your battery charge, and be aware to recharge your batteries in however way you seem it works for you. Fit the oxygen mask first on yourself before you do so on anybody else. I worked as a flight attendant for 5 years, and I used to make that announcement about 4 or 5 times a day. And I used to always wonder, Surely, if you're a parent, you're going to put the oxygen mask first on your child. Yeah, if you do that, your child will be fine, but you will then pass out, and you will be then not you'll be no use to the child. So the same thing goes when it comes to self-care. If you look after yourself, you are then in a better position of caring and supporting for the people around you. But if you don't look after yourself, you could find yourself in a situation where you're like the person who's holding everybody up, and then when you cave, everybody will cave around you like a house of cards. So please, please, please make your self-care a priority. What else? Yeah, so taking care of your health. I always say this to my kids: remember, your body is the only place you live. So you only have one body. It's not like if something's wrong with this body, you can go off to another body. No, this is the only body you have. So cherish it, look after it, and then it'll thank you and serve you well. So this is another exercise that you do called progressive muscle relaxation technique to reduce stress, and that is, you can Google it. There's lots of exercises where it's kind of like a meditation, but you're actually tensing muscles and then releasing. So if you were to tense a muscle for like a few seconds, like your shoulders, for example, where we carry a lot of our tension, if you scrunch up your shoulders as if you're trying to hug your ears, and you try and hold the tension, and maybe even try and build it, and then let go, and exhale at the same time, you'll find your tension just draining from your shoulders. And if you do this 3 times, I promise you look down at your shoulders and you really realize, oh wow, that's where my shoulders are meant to be. Because normally a lot of us tend to walk around with our shoulders around our ears, So we've actually forgotten what a relaxed muscle feels like. So progressive muscle relaxation can actually help you reconnect with a relaxed muscle, and it can also help you become more aware of when you're tense and when you're not. Right, and these are loads of exercises. I mean, mindfulness, journaling is another one, and of course, I have to say, if you feel you need to speak to someone, and you don't have to have, often people think you go to therapy if you have mental health issues, if you are depressed, if you're anxious, if you're, absolutely, we work with all types of mental health issues, but also it's great to take a preventative approach. Going to see a counselor or a therapist before you're actually feeling unwell, and is a great way to, I suppose, do some personal development, because you can actually explore with a person who doesn't know you, who does not have an agenda apart from actually supporting you, can really be very effective and can help you kind of claim a more authentic and fuller life. And I think all kids, in their secondary school, they should try therapy, because at that stage in your life, you're really figuring out what you want to do in life. Who are you? These are all amazing questions that you can ask in therapy. And it's not that the therapist is going to give you the answers. They're just going to help you find the answers within. And they will guide you to help to find the answers. You have the answers within you all the time, but it's just accessing those can be a little bit tricky. Okay, so final quotes that I like to finish on. I was always looking outside myself for strength and confidence, but it comes from within. It's there all the time. I am enough, especially with what's happening at the moment. You're doing amazing. As I said, if you woke up this morning and you're just here for this talk, you a huge sense of achievement, because you've done really well. As we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. And as we are liberated from our own fear, our presence actually liberates others. And I suppose that's the key for me, work that I do, whether it's as a psychotherapist, whether it's workshops like this, is to try and share with you. I experienced incredible benefits because I had the courage to look inwards and go on that inward journey, that then helped me claim the life that I was always meant to have. But it takes incredible courage to do so. So I know how much I benefited, and I hope that what I spoke to you about in the last hour or so has helped you. And if you have any questions, any comments, please do send in your messages now, or you can also get in touch with us at insidematters.ie or at info@insidematters.ie. Because as it is a really tough time that we're all going through collectively, and if you look after yourself, if you make time for self-care, and build up your resilience, you can get through this difficult time and be healthier when you come out of it, as opposed to being unhealthier. So make your self-care and your mental health and your sense of well-being a priority. Thank you very much. That's me done. Any questions at all? Let me just see. Do we have any questions? Oh wow, we have questions. Great stuff. So Scott says, turning inwards can often be scary and daunting process, and sometimes attending therapy in any form isn't something that's always accessible for a number of reasons. Do you have a suggestion of where to start in the early conversations that you might have with yourself to begin the process of identifying your stresses and boundaries? Yeah, I mean, you could do that exercise, the wheel of life, and then there's another exercise called the Johari window that I didn't have time to show you today. Just Google it, Johari, Johari. And these are little simple exercises that can help you just get to know yourself a little bit more. But you're absolutely right. Picking up the phone to make an appointment with a therapist is incredibly daunting. I still remember the day I did it. It was very hard, especially because I was worried that I wouldn't find an LGBTQI plus affirming service. But thankfully, we're here, Inside Matters is here, and many of our therapists are from the LGBTQ community, so there won't be any issue there. But still, asking for help is probably one of the hardest things that we can do. I came across a video on TikTok the other day. The 3 things people find difficult to say: I'm sorry, I need help, and Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire sauce. That's the funniest thing. But asking for help is very hard. But it takes great courage. But believe me, if you do it, you will not regret it, because it's just going to change your life for the better. Leo says, "Hi Dale, thank you so much for the enlightening and truly wonderful presentation. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story and for providing so many gentle golden nuggets on how we can collectively maybe a little be kinder to ourselves." Really well done. Thanks very much. I'm so bad at taking praise, but thank you so much. I'm working on it. Jennifer says, "Hi, thanks for this. Very interesting and helpful. How long does it usually take to retrain ourselves to think more positive thoughts so that it's a habit?" Now, that's a great question, because there's a lot of pressure on think positive, be positive. Don't let life get you down. There's a lot of pressure on thinking positively, and I used to be one of those. Can I just say, I used to be one of those people as well. I used to say that to myself: think positive, and positive things will happen. But you mustn't forget that everything that happens in your body, even your thoughts, they're all symptoms. So if you're having negative thoughts, it's a symptom of something. Now, if every time you have a negative thought, you kind of push it down and try and replace it with a positive thought, that doesn't make the negative thought go away. In fact, it makes a negative thought gain arms and legs and hair and get bigger. So it's really, really important that if a negative thought comes up, be curious about it and say, what's that telling me? Where is that coming from? And if it's like, for example, if today is a shit day for you, okay, let's say it's a shit day for today. Today is a crappy day, and God, I hate this whole COVID thing, and I really wish we could go back to living a normal life and I could hug my friends. Say that, sit in it, have a good cry, have a good yell, open the door and roar if you have to, But by doing that, you're actually embracing that thought, and you will see when you do that, the thought will just go off by itself. You're not forcing it out. You're not replacing it. You're not pushing it down. You're letting it kind of air, and then you watch and see. It just goes away. Because what usually happens, these negative thoughts, they keep accumulating, and then suddenly they get a life of their own, and that's when you become really overwhelmed. So I suppose what I'm saying to you is positive thinking. Yeah, look, my glass is half full and all that, right? But if there's negative thoughts, be curious about them, be compassionate to yourself for having those negative thoughts. We're all going through a horrendous time. There's going to be a gazillion negative thoughts every day. So let's be compassionate to ourselves and say, look, you're doing the best you can, and don't put additional pressure to be positive 24/7, 7 days a week, because it's impossible, especially with what's happening at the moment. Okay, another question here from David. What is your opinion on a coaching network to support staff to self-awareness and interpersonal skills to complement mentoring networks? I'll have to think about that one. I'm not quite sure, but I know there's loads of wellness initiatives in workplaces. I think a good starting point is to make sure that you have we deliver wellness workshops in workplaces. Bring in someone that kind of helps set the tone of the conversation, and then from that would be a really good springboard then for an organization to kind of set up their own wellness, well-being networks. But you just need to make sure that you all have the same information and you're all, I suppose, singing off the same hymn sheet, so to speak. But if you have any more questions, do get in touch and I'll be very happy to chat to you. So I'm done. It's 1 minute past 3. Apologies, Dublin Pride, for going over by 1 minute. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much to the wonderful sign language interpreters. You were bleeding massive. And over to Dublin Pride, and to all of you watching, look, we're getting through this together, one day at a time. Make self-care a priority today. This is Dil Wickremasinghe from Inside Matters, wishing you well. Bye.
Thank you very much, Dil, for that. As Dil mentioned, if you want to learn more about Insight Matters, just go to insightmatters.ie, or in our community centre here, check their booth for more information. Right, folks, just like earlier sessions, we're going to take a small 30-minute break, well, 29 minutes now. So we'll be back at 3:30. Hope to see you then.